Kia ora koutou katoa, nau mai, haere mai. Welcome along to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. My name is Anton Matthews, and I am one of the proud owners of Hustle Group. We're a whānau-owned business based right here in Ōtautahi, trying to do some cool things in the hospitality space. And this podcast is about going beyond all of that mahi, having really good conversations, good kōrero with awesome people. And in today's episode, I had the privilege of sitting down with Val Tauamiti, a good mate of mine, and we go back a long time. It was a really awesome opportunity to just sit down with a mate and have a good kōrero about what he's been going through. We started the conversation by talking about all of his mahi in the not-for-profit space and how, as a leader, he has felt the pressure to carry a lot of that burden on his own shoulders. And actually, that led to some pretty scary health consequences for Val and some pretty major surgery and a pretty major operation to do with his heart. We spent the second half of the conversation talking about what he's learned since then and some of the things that Val is doing so that he can show up and be the very best version of himself for his colleagues, but most importantly, for his whānau. This kōrero was raw, vulnerable, and I really loved it. So if that stuff is interesting to you, then hang around and let's get into it. Oh, kia ora, Val. Bro, it's been a long time since we've sat down and had a good kōrero, so I appreciate you giving up your time. I know you're a very, very busy person, and really appreciate you being in the chair and agreeing to sit down and have this kōrero, this conversation with me today. Thank you.
No, all good. My loss way forward. Kia ora, bro. And cool to have a chat. Been a big fan.
Obviously, you and I, we go back a long way, but there'll be a lot of people out there who maybe don't know you, don't know what you're about. So how do you normally describe to people what it is that you do when you wake up every day, and I suppose why do you do it?
Yeah, nice. Good question. Val Tauamiti, born and raised here in Christchurch, Ōtautahi in Summerfield. Mum Samoan, Dad Samoan. Dad wasn't around, but Mum did a really good job of raising myself and my 4 siblings. I had to count that. 2 brothers, 2 sisters.
I know your 2 brothers. I don't know if I know your 2 sisters.
You've got an older sister and then a younger sister, 2 years, and we're pretty close. We're sort of like the 3 older ones, 2 younger ones.
Yeah.
But what do I do? Currently, husband, dad, father.
Yeah.
And then in my spare time, I lead a non-for-profit. We do health and wellbeing education in intermediate and secondary schools around New Zealand. So we've got a Christchurch office and an Auckland office. Yeah. So sort of CE in the non-for-profit space is what I'd say in a formal setting. But mate, just one bigger show and the other bigger where the bread is. Yeah.
What I liked about your answer just there is how you listed that off. I try really hard to do that as well. Like whenever I'm asked for a bio or anything like that, I always say papa, husband. Those are always the first 2. Because when I think of who I want to be, that's who I want to show up for first. And then there's all this other stuff that I do, which is probably why people actually want to hear about. It's I think it's important to let people know, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, first and foremost. Yeah. And then I'm this guy that does all this other stuff as well. So I like how you answer that, bro. So when you say you go around or your organization goes around and works in all of these different, mainly high schools or intermediates as well?
Yeah, mainly high schools. But I'm currently leading a group called the Youth Impact Foundation, which is a platform for youth development organizations to sort of leverage a bit of shared services and be really cost effective or efficient. And then a bit of the delivery team or delivery aspect of their programs, sort of cost sharing, just acknowledging that there's lots of small to medium youth orgs who do similar kaupapa, but different kaupapa, similar medium. And it's how do we cost share effectively to make it work? And the longevity for the org sort of comes down to the business model and how do we make that work. And there's a lot of people who want to do good work but get tied up in the admin or they get caught up in having to do all the paperwork and not being able to do the mahi. So it's how do we free those people up to do that and do a real good job of it, and then in-house or grab all the backroom admin and put it in together.
Because I think, am I right in thinking even in today's day and age, a lot of the mahi around delivery is actually still physically going into kura and doing a lot of the work?
Yeah, so I think post-COVID, during COVID, we thought, oh man, we got to switch to digital. Schools had this need for it. What we realized afterwards is actually, face-to-face presentations are still valuable. Yeah. And especially in a world for young people where it is a digital world, a lot of their content and the oversaturation of what they're consuming is on their phones. Point of difference, I think, that can cut through the noise is actually face-to-face. It's quite confronting for them because they're
not used to it.
Yeah, they're not sure. What I've found, and this is, I've been in that type of work, for 15 years, which is like a blip on the radar for some people. But what I would say in that time span has been like, man, the audiences have shifted.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. Like they used to be not used to that interaction. Oh yeah, I can sit down and listen, and it's pretty common narrative around the attention span of young people these days. So having to be more engaging and change the way that you communicate things to make sure you land it in a way that's relatable to them and palatable. Yeah, that's a different challenge, and it's rapidly changed in the last few years.
That's interesting. I had actually the last guest that we had on here, Carl, was talking about. Well, he was actually talking about loneliness, but part of that conversation was social connectivity. And he was talking about, and it was surprising to me that some of the most lonely people in our society at the moment are aged 18 to 24. And we're sort of unpacking, why that was. And one of the things that came up was social media, phones, and where the irony is that we're so well connected online. So we're highly, we're networking, but actually this stuff is not happening. And for a number of reasons, some of that's our own doing as a society. But what it's leading to is that, a lot of our young people, it's just so unusual for them to actually have someone sitting there, to be forced to sit still and listen and engage, because the attention spans, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like I'm the first person to pick up my phone whenever I got 20 seconds, so we're all guilty. It's not a young person problem. Yeah, I mean, such an amazing and really important mahi. You must have your finger on the pulse around what are some of the challenges that rangatahi are facing. What are they in your experience?
Yeah, no, good question. And I mean, it's a big answer and it's a simple answer. Like you can go one or two ways. And I would say, right, they're the same issues that we deal with as adults. They just look different.
We're just grown up kids, eh? No, still 100%. Trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and that's it. And like if you go back to like the real core sort of basic human needs of like feeling safe and secure, the need for belonging, having a sense of identity, all those things that we still deal with as adults. And I think at every stage of life, anyway, in my experience, every stage of life, I've had to, you check in on those and those answers might be different or slightly shifted, or, you might mature in some areas, but the need is still the same. The core human needs, and I think they're the same as teenagers, except they don't have the life experience or the maturity or even just the brain development. Young people are good collectors of information, not good interpreters of information.
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. So if you think about what they're consuming so much.
Bro, hard out.
But don't have the ability to weigh that up. And to be fair, like it can take people up to, their adult lives. Even me, like I'm still working stuff out. I thought I had it in theory, but what that actually means for me tangibly, like I'm only just working that out now.
Oh, 100%. I agree. Every day I was even thinking the other day about this concept of changing your mind. And I started writing a piece out because we almost think of like when somebody changes their mind, our default sometimes is like, you're a hypocrite. You used to say something different. And I just thought to myself, like, what's wrong with changing your mind? Like, I thought something and then I learned something else. I thought about it and I was like, actually, I think differently now. So I've changed my mind. But so I'm still changing my mind about a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm unlearning stuff and I'm learning new stuff. And I think that's okay. I think that's just growth. But we just have this thing about you can't change your mind. So I'm just kind of exploring that. But that's my way of saying, like, I totally get it. I'm still learning stuff. I'm still figuring it out.
I think there's part of that that's like, and I don't know the psychology behind this, but I'd say that there's an element of that where like our default human setting is to like group people because we need that. We need to be able to place you in a place. And like, it doesn't matter what culture, there's always a need to put someone and classify them in our brain, in our memory or whatever. We need to store them somewhere.
Like segment them, eh?
100%, yeah. And so we do that. And like, the downside of that is the stereotypes and, all those things. But like what it does actually for us is it creates like a level of safety. It's like, I know Anton and I know that this is the way he sees the world, as far as I'm concerned. So when you do shift, I think some of that pushback is usually like, that's not the box I put you in.
Yeah.
Well, like,
that's so true.
That's not the lane I have you in. And like, so I think the part after that is like this questioning, like, oh, true, why have they changed lane? And what is it within that? Is there something I could take from that?
Yeah.
I think closely linked to what you just said, I've been balancing, and especially like as the boss, and you'll relate to this, there's a difference between hearing and listening. Often I'll get, listening to me. And I'm like, well, no, they did listen to you. Just because they didn't change their mind, or just because they didn't decide that they agree with your point of view, you're
assuming they didn't listen.
Yeah, or just you're receiving that or translating that as my opinion is inferior. They're not listening to me.
Yeah. When in fact maybe they just disagree.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
And it's all right.
Yeah.
So that was a random tangent, but I
agree.
While you're talking.
No, I don't mind going down those rabbit holes and thinking about that stuff. That's kind of those are my shower thoughts. So, like I said, I've known you for a long time, and I know how involved you have been in in various communities. And I know the cost that can sometimes come at when you're giving and giving and giving, and you're in those positions where you just have to serve your communities. It can be taxing. How do you find, what are your thoughts, first of all, around balance? I'm really fascinated at the moment talking to people around balance. Work-life balance, life balance, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, what are your thoughts around balance? Is it even a thing? Have you achieved it?
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. That was so quick, you answered. Tell me why.
Where I'm at personally, balance is hard, bro. I think it's just that it's the pursuit of perfect and happy, because perfect balance lends itself to perfection. I'm like, when do you ever get that? Maybe for a moment in time.
Yep.
But it's only ever
short-lived.
One thing away from it not being in balance. I like to talk about tensions. That's how I frame it for me. It's always a tension because there's always something pulling.
Tell me about that. Because I've heard people talk about, and I don't know if it's necessarily what you're talking about with tensions, but I've heard people say you're being pulled towards something or you're running away from something or being pushed away from something. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go for a run. Okay. Am I being pulled towards a healthy lifestyle or am I running away from something I don't want to be, which might be over? So those are tensions in life. So we all do things, but what's driving us? Are we being pulled towards something or are we running away from something? Is that kind of what you mean with tensions or not? Or is it different?
No, it's slightly different. I mean, I get the driver piece, and I think I'll go there first. The driver piece for me is actually about ownership. So often people started from a deficit drive, which is what, I don't want to be unhealthy. And so I'm running from that.
Got you.
But I think when you get ownership over that, it's actually the language shifts from I don't want to be unhealthy, I don't want to, die young, whatever, to I want to, the shift in language goes, I want to be healthier. I want to live a longer life. I want to be around for my grandkids. And I think that's the ownership piece.
Yeah.
Everyone starts out of a deficit drive, I reckon. There's always things that happen to you that are like, oh, yeah, crap, I don't want that. For me, one of my biggest fears in life was repeating, I suppose, the cycle that happened in my home around fathers, not having a father around, or your dad around. I shouldn't say father because they were father figures, but, not having dad. And that's a huge fear. My experience, if you run from that fear, and that's all you're doing is looking back at it, it'll consume you. It actually will catch you eventually. It might not be now, it might not be in the next 10 years, but eventually it can. And it's definitely been something that I've been challenged about. And so the switch has had to be don't run from the fear, move towards the great. What is the good in it? Actually, I want to be better. And that required a sense of ownership because you don't own your fear. That's not on us.
You're scared of it, right?
Yeah.
You're doing everything you can to get as far away from it as you can. Whereas when you're moving towards something, you're saying, this is within my grasp. I just have to move forward.
Yeah, or and even if it isn't in your grasp, it's I'm choosing to move forward because I want to be better, not I'm running away from that as a reactive process. So, yeah. Yeah, so, anyway, I think that's the driver piece to me. The tension piece to me is that there's always competing ideas and things that want your time, for instance. So, let's go specifically to the service piece, Samoan. Our culture is deeply rooted in service to family, to the extended whānau. Then it's, culture, it's faith, and it's all those things. So how do you balance that when that's the collective, right?
Yeah.
With growing up in, I suppose, the Pālangi world or Pākehā world or whatever you want to call it. It's to be fair, it's New Zealand. That's what it is. That's the picture we're dealing with. So how do you balance that when everything is zoned towards the individual?
Yeah.
And so the tension is all about the individual, all about the collective.
I get it.
Neither one of those is right. So it sits, and we talk about this balance. And it's we want to find that balance. The idea of the tension is probably more, for me, is that it's ever moving. Sometimes you lean more towards the collective. You have to learn to be able to go through, sit in that tension.
It's exactly the same as Te Ao Māori, bro. Everything you're saying is about the collective. It's about looking after the people, multi-generational living. everyone has a role to play, everyone supports each other. And even the things that we do today, thinking about ourselves as being ancestors of the future generations, making sure we're serving the people that aren't even born yet. But then, like you've just described perfectly, you've got this this very individualistic approach over here, which is capitalism, every man for himself, that kind of thing. And like you said, none of those are perfect models. So we sort of sit in the middle, and which way do you lean? And how do you walk comfortably in both of those worlds, I suppose, eh? It's tricky.
Yeah, it is. Being real, and I'm there, like, for a long time. And I'd say since I was a child, and my own siblings would recognize this, like I was very, like, self-focused. It's like, and woe was me, like, oh,
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't outwardly present myself, outside of our family, or, those who know me really well, and like, I mean, properly, which is probably one of like 5 or 6 people would know that I'm, to be honest, I'm a bit of a sook, if I don't get my way.
I've never seen that.
No, that's it. And you wouldn't, because, I've learned to present the side that, works well. Like my work, right? It's meaningful. It's purpose driven.
Yep.
It's like, I want to make a difference because I care about young people.
Yep.
The hard thing in the non-for-profit sector, and often in the charity sector, is that people do that and it's purely driven out of heart and passion, right? But when that runs out, because that's not infinite, that has a finite value. Like you can only go so long. When that runs out, then you start doing it at your own cost and the cost of those around you. So where I'm going with this is that, like, you're in it to work for the collective, but you have to acknowledge that the individual, you as in me, you yourself, is important. You have to invest in that in order to serve that.
Got you. I agree, 100%. Yeah, there's been a few times in my life where I've really put other people front and center and worked really, really hard to try and serve other people, whether that's my whānau or whether it's like our staff or our business or just other people, not myself. And eventually you burn out, you run out of energy, and what you realize in that moment is that if I can't show up, then all of those people that I want to go and serve miss out because I can't show up. And so you kind of realize in that moment that it is a bit of a balancing act. You have to, in order for you to be able to serve the people that you want to serve, in your case, it's young people in your community, you still have to be healthy. Because if you're not there, then how are you going to be able to do all that mahi? So you still have to invest in yourself a little bit. So, you have to, there's a time to be selfish. It's almost like being selfish for a wee while enables you to be able to turn up and be the best version of yourself so that you can give the best version of yourself to the people that you want to, eh?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking that, and I'm processing that for myself. I'm like, oh yeah, how does that sit? One of the things I find challenging in this space is that the old saying, like, every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep.
And so to be able to serve the collective, it's like, it's got to come at a cost somewhere. And
everything has a cost.
100%. Yeah, agreed. And so if it's not you, then it's going to be the people around you, right?
Yeah, it's the next closest people.
Yeah, and there's like, there's more. And if I broke it down for myself, it's like, I developed a whole lot of people pleasing like traits in my upbringing because of this fear of rejection. So I'm running from that.
Yeah.
And so and then what it's done is that the reaction to that, or the consequence to that, is that, historically I've done everything to please everyone else out there, but then had an absolute blowout either on myself. And so you find unhealthy coping mechanisms for that, or the people that you touched on before, the people you subconsciously know, well, you believe will be around for you the most.
They're the ones that feel it.
Yeah, because I don't think you consciously decide this, but a lot of the time you're like, no, they'll understand me. They'll understand they know what I'm going through.
There's a lot there to unpack. So and tell me if I've got this wrong. So you're saying a lot of this stems from this fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Because you grew up and maybe subconsciously felt rejected because dad wasn't around, which means I feel rejected. So you're running away from that and you think, how can I protect myself from feeling this way, feeling this rejection? I develop people-pleasing skills to please all the people around me so they don't reject me. However, all of that stuff comes at a cost. And if it's me personally that has to pay that cost, fine, I can handle that. But I can only handle so much, and eventually I'm going to blow. So that's one way. And so when that happens, you develop undesirable coping mechanisms, I think is the word that you use. And then I guess, and I'm not saying this is you at all, but some people might fall into addiction and whatever.
Yeah.
Or you don't develop those necessarily, but you take it out on the people that you think will forgive you which are the ones that are closest to us. It's often our loved ones, it's our tamariki, husbands and wives and so on. And I've been guilty of that because, like you said, you go, they will understand. They know me. They know the real me. And so they accept me for all my flaws and all my great things, but also all my flaws. And so if they have to see this version that no one else gets to see, which is the bad side, the dark side, well, they know who I am, and they'll love me regardless. And they probably do, but there's only so much people can take.
Yeah.
Before they go, I had enough.
Or like dealing with the aftermath of whatever the coping mechanism is.
Yeah.
So, like if it's alcohol, it's like, you have these big blowouts, but then who pays for it? It's like, sweet, well, you've had a blowout and the next day you're no good to your kids. Or your partner or your spouse,
Yeah, they've got to pick up the slack.
100%. That's probably the way easier way to communicate it, yeah.
But is that what you mean? They've got to pick up the slack?
Like they do, and they end up doing it. And there's only so much of that they can do.
Yeah. Well, any of us, eh?
Yeah.
So I'm sensing that maybe that's a little bit of how you're feeling right now. Do you feel like you've just given and given and given? Back to my original question around giving to your community, and it's come at a cost, either personal or the people around you, and now you're thinking, how do I make this sustainable? Like, I can't carry on like this.
Yeah.
It's almost like burnout. You're burnt out.
Well, it has, and that's what it was. I think the word of warning there is that, like,
You did that.
I did that, bro. The burnout was me. And actually going back to some of the chats you've had with some of your other guests, like, actually it's around, like, you give and give and give out of my own strength and out of what I can give. And I've decided to do that without actually looking for help or accepting help or, taking people along with you on the journey of that. So I think it's that isolation piece. Like again, without stereotyping, I think the males, man, we're real good at it. Just like tripping on, we're like, oh no, we're all good. And then we don't acknowledge what's going on for us. We just push to the side and keep going. And like for me, I'd suppress whatever whatever I was feeling, because for the greater good of the collective, right? I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling exhausted, but I've got to keep doing this because there's 100,000 young people that need to hear this message from our team. And if I don't keep going, and there's a lot of I for that. It's very much like, I've got to do this. But then in retrospect, I look at it and go, man, I actually didn't need to carry that by myself, but I convinced myself I had to.
Why did you convince yourself? Did you not think other people could do it? Or was it you wanted, I know it wasn't that you wanted all the kudos at the end of it. Do you think, why would you not share their load?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think for me, when you take on the, responsibility for anything, you want to own it. And I had this thing, I think there was a part of me going into it, there's probably a lot of imposter syndrome, which most of us, fear and have, in new roles. Like I was 30 and appointed as CEO of a non-for-profit, which like, to me,
it's massive.
Well, even then I'm just like, they're just words, they're just titles. But when I first received it, I was like, yo, okay, this is a lot. And so I took that weight on and I felt almost crushed by it. And so I was like, I got to prove to everyone else that, I can do this.
And I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And your way of doing that was take everything on.
Yeah, I took it all on because I was like, I can do this. And even when I didn't believe that, I was telling myself, like, no, you got this. Just like keep calm. And like there's some great leadership lessons. One of the ones I heard recently, like one of the gems was like, leaders panic slowly. Oh yeah, I can do that. But then it all comes back to that one leader. It takes a special human to be able to carry that. Like we've alluded to, I don't believe that that mantle is meant for one person to carry by themselves. You might have a figurehead, but they need that support structure. You look at the way they, any business runs or any sports team. Now we look at, what does the senior exec look like? Yeah. Yes, you might have a CEO, but who's around them that is supporting that? And that's why we have really clear reporting lines. You look at the All Blacks, you might have a captain, captains, but you've got a leadership group and they carry that. I think Sean Fitzpatrick was the first All Black captain to go, I don't want to be a captain. I don't want to do it. I need more people to help me.
There's like three other people here who are just as good as I am. Like, why don't we the collective?
That's how. So we understand that in high performance sport and in business, we understand that for a high performing team to function well, you need a group of people to lead. But yes, with one figurehead, but that figurehead has to draw. There's actually accountability in that. Whereas like for me, I was like, here's the figurehead of this organization, and I wasn't leveraging, or I wasn't, not even that, I just wasn't even acknowledging that there were other people around me to help me in that. I was just
who actually wanted to, probably.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, this is where I think the burnout piece is hard in the non-for-profit space, because resources scarce. Often it's like, sole operators, or there's not a senior exec team around you to lift with you. And so that's why I think that burnout rate's huge, because we're so attached to the kaupapa that we're like, to the death.
How did you recognize, like, there must have been a point where you realized something's not quite right? Like, what are the signs of burnout? How did you know that something wasn't working right?
Yeah, wow. That's one of the hard things about burnout, is that you don't recognize it.
Does someone else had to point it out to you?
100%. It's either that or your world comes crashing down. Those are probably the two ways to figure that one out. And for me, I ignored a lot of the early signs and didn't acknowledge a lot of the things I was feeling, and then I was doing things that weren't actually pretty out of character,
right?
And I'm not proud of. And now, in hindsight, trying to work on those things. But I think, for me, it took something pretty drastic to be like, crap, I need to be working up to this. And I also, about 18 months ago, I started getting I got sick, and I went to the GP, and they're like, mate, your heart rate's out the gate.
Really?
Yeah. So our resting heart rate was at 180.
What?
They kept me in there, and this was just down at
your resting heart rate.
Resting heart rate was at 180, and they're like, that's not normal. And so they did a bunch of tests, sent me in, got me hooked up to all the machines, and did the ECG, and cardiologist looks at it, and I don't know if you've seen the ECG, that's like sheet music for them. They see the picture, and they're like,
they knew straight away.
Yeah. So they, straight away, they're like, this rhythm is consistent with what they call tachycardia. Long RP tachycardia is where we went to in the end.
What's that?
Yeah, right. Good question.
In layperson's terms, what is that?
Yeah,
does it basically mean your heart's working way too hard?
Yeah. So what actually happened was on my heart, and there's medical professionals, they don't pinpoint it, but what they suggest is that I was so stressed, and I wasn't acknowledging the stress to start with. I was just, keep calm, carry on. Bro, stop. Yeah. Acknowledge that. Yeah. Get some help. Then carry on if you can.
Yeah, right.
And what was happening was I was keeping calm and carrying on. And there's a muscle. There's lots of muscles around your heart, and there's a muscle on the wall of my heart that obviously was sensing there's something wrong here. This guy's like super stressed, whatever. And so it decided that it was going to help out.
What the muscle did?
Yeah.
So what? It was carrying your heart.
It was flinching or contracting, trying to help with the heartbeat. Wow. But what it was actually doing when it did that was it was cutting the signal or the cycle, in half. And so I was only getting half the power out of it.
Out of your heart?
Yeah. And so then it was having to beat twice as fast.
Got you.
To keep the blood around.
And that's how you ended up with a resting heart rate, 180.
Yeah. And so, we tried to medicate it, tried to do a few things to get it down. It didn't respond as well as they hoped. I got it down to 140.
Still very high.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm lucky that we got health insurance and could get to a specialist quickly, because it's like a year in the public system, which is
really
absolute shock. I mean, they'd have to address it sooner, because I would have had to go into hospital.
Yeah. But you still
want more. Yeah. So anyway, long and short of it, they went in, they performed what they call an ablation, which is actually quite common, pretty safe. But they went in and they burnt basically the muscle on the wall of the heart to stop it from.
It was trying to help, but was actually causing most of the problem.
There's some lessons in there.
All right.
Yeah. So to get back to it, so the burnout piece, reflecting back on it, is if you don't accept the early signs, which can be just stress, or your spouse or your loved ones talking to you about or telling you about it. If you don't accept those things and you keep going, eventually your body will tell you you the things that you're not listening to. I think there's a Chinese proverb, and I'm going to butcher it, but the heart of it is your body will shout at you what your heart's like.
Trying to tell you.
Yeah, tries whispering.
Man, that must have been pretty scary.
Again, with my my ability to suppress my emotions and my feelings. And people are like, are you all right? I'm like, all good, just going in. It's pretty standard.
Did you believe that? Or did you actually know this was serious, but you didn't want to worry people around you? Because I almost think, honestly, if I was in that situation, my default, I think, would be the same. I think I wouldn't want to scare my kids. Even if I believed in myself, like, man, this is pretty bad, I would try really hard not to shift that worry and that angst onto other people. I would try and it's how ironic, right? It's like, this is what got me into this problem in the first place, carrying all of this weight. And my answer is, let me carry all of this weight. That's probably how I would respond. I'm interested though.
I think that's definitely part of I by default, and I class myself as delusionally optimistic.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the delusional part, but optimistic.
Yeah.
Optimism, I think, is a good thing.
There's nothing wrong with optimism.
Yeah.
But delusional optimism is to ignore every sign and still go, oh, sweet, we're good.
Okay.
And it's got me in some places, some good, some great opportunities, some great places and spaces to be involved in. But if it's not checked, like anything good can be good for a period, but if it's not checked and not held accountable, bro, it's out the gate. That delusional optimism is like, no, we're sweet, we're all good. There's nothing but me. This is standard. This is the standard procedure. Like, not great that I'm feeling it at 33, but it does happen. Like, understandable because of what's going on. Bro, but I think I wasn't consciously doing this, but I think I was freaking out, like, deep down, and I wasn't acknowledging it. Wasn't acknowledging the fear that I had around it. I just pushed it to the side and painted it over it with my delusional optimism, and then carried on. It wasn't until when you do, your pre-op stuff, like, and I'm waiting in the bed room, and they were going to roll me in. This operation's out the gate because you stay awake for it.
Really?
Yeah, because they need you to be awake so they basically. They want your heart to start racing. So they need you to be awake.
What? So you freak out?
Not freak out, because you don't feel it like anything. And you'll know this for people with like racy heart, they call it, or any one of those sort of conditions. Your heart can be thumping, and if you're used to it over a period of time, I suppose fit people will do the same, or unfit people. I don't feel.
We don't know any different.
No, I don't feel like I'm like freaking out. There's no hypertension. There's no like shortness of breath or anything. It's just like buff, 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 buff. And then afterwards, I'm tired. I think I was sitting in there going, I'm going to have this operation, and I had to be awake for it. Because usually if you're not, sweet, nothing to worry about. But I'm actually like, crap.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anyone who knows me, I don't even like blood, so I don't know how I would handle that, to be honest.
It was out the gate. So anyway, they're in the operation. And the operating theatre is actually like, in this context, bro, it's crazy because they're putting a camera up to try and find the patches. Like, they're scanning your heart to figure, like, build a 3D like image. Then they're like sending signals into it, trying to get it to tick, and so they can find it, and then they're going to burn it. And you're watching it, bro, on a screen.
Oh, you can see it.
Yes.
So not only are you awake, you can actually see what's going on.
I'm lying on the operating table, and there's a nurse like talking to me, a surgeon's talking to me, and then like there's like 10 big screens, and it looks like something out of Star Trek. You're like, and then they're like yelling out to the they got a team in the back. It's like talking to the sound desk. They're operating, controlling all the robots and the computers that are working its way up, and the camera angles, and like, yep, can you just change this? And so they're a lot of teamwork, bro. It's crazy. Anyway,
amazing.
Amazing, like, crazy. And I was like, man, I came out of that surgery. I was like, I wonder how much that cost.
Yeah.
But all to say, like, I was in there thinking about it, and because I was awake, I was like, bro, what are you up to? I was like, how have I ended up here? Yeah, I think it was amplified by the fact that night anyway, like, as it transpired, I ended up being in the recovery room by myself just for a long period of time, pretty awake, and just like ticking this thing over. I was like, bro, you just had a heart issue that's like pretty serious, and you decided that you were going to acknowledge it.
So there was a moment where you realised what you'd been doing.
Yep.
And even how you'd handled this whole process.
Right. And then it dawned on me how lonely I felt. So going back to, I was like, bro, this is you, and there's no one else around you because you've isolated yourself by not talking to people, and I freaked out. It freaked me out. I won't lie. I didn't respond well to that. Like, not in the moment, but after the fact, after that surgery, you would have thought, bro, this guy's got, new lease on life, and like, nah, bro, I was almost reckless.
Really?
Yeah, I was just like, stuff this, like, yeah.
I wonder why you went that way.
I think you get, like, you've always got options or choices to make around the way you respond, and I personally have played it like pretty safe and conservative, like always tried to do the right thing, whether it be a people-pleasing thing or if genuinely like I actually want to do the right thing, like, yeah, sweet. I think I got to that point and was like, bro, I thought I did the right thing. I thought I've been doing the right things, and then I've got myself to this situation. I'm faced with the idea that, I'm feeling lonely and I'm feeling alone in this, which isn't the first time I felt like that. Like, I've had another medical situation where it's like that, and I'm like, crap, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't mean to be like super extreme, but like, faced with the, standing at the door of death.
Yeah.
You've got two.
I don't want to say it, but like when you're talking about your heart, you only get one of those. So like if it goes wrong, like it is actually all over.
Yeah.
That must have crossed your mind.
No, bro, I think I pushed it away until I was in the recovery bed. I was like, crap, that.
It's that delusion again.
Yeah.
Optimistic.
Yeah. And I suppressed it, didn't acknowledge it. Because, I mean, it sounds like when you listen to it, you're like, bro, what are you up to? But I think we all do it in little ways, like by being dismissive of where we're at. For me, one of my main contexts outside of family and work is sport. And so it's always been rugby. And so you show up, you come to training and you park whatever's been going on for you and do, this is your way to just express yourself. True. When you park what's going on, you still got to go pick it up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You might leave what's going on or the tensions or the stresses or that. And so you're not acknowledging it and working through it. You're just like booting it down the road.
Yeah, to deal with it later.
Yeah. And then I just never dealt with it. And it just kept happening and happening and happening.
So then you go through that experience, and then what? You're now in this phase of trying to rebuild, do things differently. I mean, surely the way that you're talking, it seems like there's been some reflection. You've learned some lessons. You don't want to end up back there again. So what are you doing differently now as opposed to in the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I'm doing is counselling, just regular counselling, right? And not getting too ahead of myself thinking, no, I'm all good. In the past, I've had it, and we'll have it for a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 months, and then like, sweet, and I'm like, I'm all good. But no, this is something I'm like, right. And I think America's like real big on it. Like, therapy, you get therapy, you see a therapist. And I think it's just an acknowledgement that, bro, everyone, whether you're in a good patch or a bad patch in life, everyone's got stuff that they like need to deal with and need to heal from. It might be small and it might be big. And that's something at 34 and realizing that I need more help than just myself and my loved ones. Something like that sort of, that third party that's removed with some, the tools and some wisdom to reflect stuff back to me. So that's been real helpful.
On that therapy thing though, or counselling, are they the same thing, therapy and counselling? Or am I oversimplifying it?
No, I think they are. I think Americans, like they'll talk about a therapist.
Right.
It's like,
I'm thinking about it as if they're the same thing. I mean, you're talking about going to an expert and having conversations, I presume. But like therapy can look like different things to different people. For some people, reading is therapy. For some people, having a long bubble bath is therapy. For some people, it's going to the gym and working. Like therapy can look different. It's just that this particular type of therapy is having a conversation with someone and them feeding back to you what they when they pick up what you're putting down and telling you what they're hearing. It's just a different type of therapy. So any stereotypes around, you're going to therapy, you're going to counselling. It's like, well, we all have our own versions of therapy. It's just that this particular one that I'm doing right now is a conversation with an expert. That's all. Yeah. But when I go to the gym, I know myself, if I don't go to the gym, because I have 2 rest days a week, on those particular rest days, I have to work really, really hard to get into a really positive headspace because I haven't had that therapy session at 4 o'clock in the morning going to the gym. It's just that it's not a conversation with an expert who went to university and studied whatever they study. It's going to the gym. It's just a different kind of therapy. So, I'm just acknowledging that we all have therapy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think in this period of my life, I've needed that other person with some expertise and the ability to be removed from the things I'm talking about. Obviously like that third party and being able to like speak into it and go, they can see it differently. So for me, that's where like one of the big things. Going back to sort of core identity, like you can lose yourself in doing good. And going, what's important to me? So just taking it back to basics. So for me, it's like, all right, what's important? So, okay, faith and family. Like those are the big pole that I was raised with. I haven't necessarily stuck to. I've said, given it lip service and the rest. So
It's really easy to do though, honestly, bro. Like because there was a phase, and I've talked about it openly, where I was telling myself and the world, I'm doing all of these things for my whānau. So that's why I'm pushing really hard. That's why we're going after all these opportunities. It's all for my kids, it's all for my whānau. Because it sounded nice, and I believed it. I did believe it. And then until it all came crashing down. So a lot of similarities. And then I had to go back and reflect on what was the actual reason I was chasing all of those things. I was telling everyone, even myself, that it was for my whānau. But like my kids didn't care. They weren't saying like, please can you go and get that other business? Please can you grow the business by X dollars? They actually would have quite happily just taken me sitting on the floor and wrestling or watching a movie or playing a game. Like that's actually what they wanted. So I was telling myself this thing like, I'm doing it for the whānau, but actually upon reflection, it was mostly for me.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the result. Yeah. So that was a moment of eating some humble pie. I think we all do it.
We do. And even going back to when we're talking about the imposter syndrome, I think that feeling that I'm actually, for me anyway, I was like, man, I'm not, like, it sounds like I'm trying to prove myself to others. I was like, actually, I'm just trying to prove myself to myself, trying to prove me to myself. For me, like with the counselling piece, it's important because there's things in my, and everyone has it in their childhood, and like the term childhood trauma, but actually dealing with it, bro, it's way uglier than that.
Is it?
Oh, I think so. Like, it doesn't matter how good your parents were, whatever, and how loving a home you would have grown up in. Everyone has interpreted their childhood in a way that, at some point isn't true or helpful. Going back to what I was saying, like, we're really good collectors of information as children, but not good interpreters of information. Phobias are developed that way, especially in that young brain, the first 3 to 5 years. Like, something negative happens, you roll off the couch, fall off, suddenly your brain says, you're up high, you're in danger, you're going to get hurt. And that's like, so that on a small scale, then you go, in the context of your whole childhood, there's definitely a lot of stuff that you would have picked up or interpreted. Misinterpreted. And then the ongoing effect when it's not addressed in your adult life is like, oh, well, I operate this way because that's how I've always seen it, or this is what I believe about the world and about myself, but it isn't necessarily true. Like, there's some of the thinking, especially in childhood development, is like, age 3 is when you're your most narcissistic.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard it, I've read it, I've seen it, and that's like popular belief. And so they're like, when they're 3, that's why they're always like, look at me, and you would have seen it with your own kids and stuff, and they're all about it. And at that point, you need that affirmation. And so I think that's some of the struggle, like if it's especially single parent homes, you're down a team member. And so they don't get necessarily the input that they need or require as a 3-year-old that they would need for them to be like, I feel seen, I feel valued.
And what are the knock-on effects of that? Yeah,
correct. So that's something, my wife had questioned for me. I was like, oh, what was that like? I was like, I don't know. I was 3. I don't remember. But I can actually see in my childhood the ongoing effects of, like, if that was the case, yeah, probably. And it's scaffolded out to my adult life going, man, I just still need to be approved by people.
You could probably go back to and timestamp it and go, what was happening in the home, and talk to people and go, when I was 3 years old, what was happening? That might help to fill in some of the gaps. But
my sister, I love her. She's 2 years younger than me, and I imagine, like, naturally, you need to look after the newborn. And, and so, like, a lot of the attention will be there. As a family, you do your best, but at the end of the day, like, there's going to be something. So where I was going back to that, and sorry, I love the scatter.
No, it's cool.
I love the scatter and the shotgun spray.
Absolutely.
But where I go to that is, like, for me, in this period of life, like, I have to go back and readdress a lot of that.
Yeah.
Reframe it for myself so that I can stop viewing the world or viewing my childhood especially, or my family, in a way that isn't true. Reinterpret that. And even my relationship with my mum and my dad, and go, man, it's sweet. Like, didn't like him because he did that, but actually going, well, he had his own stuff going on and that happened. So then I'm like, all right, put that to bed. No longer want that to be something that I'm running from.
Yeah.
But, we're going full circle here, like that ownership piece. And I'm doing that at 34.
Well, I mean, you say it at 34 as if you're a late comer. At least you're dealing with it now, and not 54 or 64. But honestly, bro, there'll be a lot of people that would go their whole life and just not address it. So, I mean, you have to be commended on that. Okay, so then now you're in this new sort of, it's almost like you've written that chapter, you're moving into this new phase now. You've learned a lot, you've done a lot of reflection, you got some shit that you're working on, and you're pretty open and vulnerable about that. So what are you excited about at the moment? As you kind of lean into that space and you move forward with intention rather than running from something, what are you really excited about at the moment?
I'm excited about preschool pickup.
Yep.
Because they're pumped, man. They don't care. I'm going through all this stuff and then, like, working it out and trying to be a better version of myself. Like, as far as my kids know, bro, I'm the best version that I can be for them. They're excited. They just go open the door, and sometimes I'm talking to the teacher before you get through the little gate, and they can hear me, and you can hear them on the other side. Like, as much as I'm learning and healing, I've got things to look forward to, and that's why I'm like, that's why I'm still hopeful. I'm looking forward to being a better dad. A better husband, better partner, nicer to be around, for sure. Someone who's contributing at the home and at work and, in all those areas, and has ownership over it, not just doing it because it's on the to-do list or the, whatever. So, I want to do that. That's our thing. I am excited about Mahi. I've recently actually handed a notice, which again is part of a big thing for me, to let go of something that I cared so deeply to my own detriment about, and hand it over to someone new, and to trust that actually, for me, I didn't actually own that kaupapa. I was a kaitiaki for a time, did the best I could with it, and it's in a better space than it was. And so now it's time to hand it over, and someone else is going to do that.
New energy.
Yeah, 100%. And it's in a place where the potential for growth is huge. And the same for me in my own mahi. Outside of work, I'm really big really big on governance. I love governance. I think it's a really unique way to see the world as far as big picture thinking, connecting all the dots. I mean, the irony is I couldn't do it for myself without other help, but that's because I need my own board. So I currently sit on 3 boards and an independent advisor for another business. So really enjoying the learning that's coming out of that, and kind of young to be jumping into that stuff, and I've got a lot of life to live, a lot to learn in the business sense and in a working sense.
You've also got a lot to give.
And I do.
There's
and
a little bit of that imposter syndrome creeping in there, maybe. I don't know.
No, for sure. I think the governance piece has been cool because it's been able to, for me anyway, to reframe the way I see myself in that, because they actually want diversity of thought. They want a younger voice or a lens. And some of the boards that I'll jump on, and they're like, you're obviously going to have connection to what they're on about, or like what the purpose is. But one of the questions I ask myself is like, who am I in that room at that table? What hat am I wearing, and why am I there? It's that why every time. You got to reframe it every time you go in.
Well, because I suppose when you're in those positions, you're there to bring a voice. Like you're there to bring to represent a group of people, and so it's about asking yourself, well, who am I here to represent? What would they say if they were standing behind me? What would they want me to say on their behalf? And bring that frame of mind to the table.
It's that lens, being able to offer that lens in a discussion, especially, and to know that you're actually allowed to have constructive dissent. You're allowed to disagree in order to find the best fit, or the fit that works the best. As far as your options. So that excites me, bro. So in that space, bro, and looking for the next opportunity. That's been that is a journey in itself.
Because I suppose you don't want to necessarily jump back into the same stuff that's got you into the situation in the first place. So maybe it's an opportunity to try something different. Who knows? So
that's where I'm at. As far as probably not looking for the non-for-profit sector for a wee bit, but being able to add to that is important.
You talked about being a good dad, being a good husband. What does that look like in a couple of sentences? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I could rattle off the first thing that comes to my mind, but one of the things I'm practicing is like, don't do that.
Okay.
Question it. What does it actually mean?
If you take the temperature, how do you know if you're being a good dad and a good husband, or if you're falling short? What are some indicators?
Okay, so I'll go with the husband bit. It's actually just connection, just making sure I'm having regular chats, good or bad, daily.
Daily?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think when I'm at my worst, it's usually because we haven't connected, or we're not having those chats.
Yeah.
Or I haven't been forthcoming.
Yeah.
And I think that's the accountability I need, as far as like not suppressing stuff, not hiding whatever I'm feeling or whatever's going on for me. I need to have the regularity of like, let's talk. And it's one of those ideas like, don't save it for the big blow up. Like, have all the hard chats, or have the micro chats, the difficult chats daily, to avoid the hard chats.
Otherwise, it just builds up and then it does explode.
Yeah, so that would be temperature gauge for me. This is a new way of thinking, and this might sound ridiculous to some people, and that's okay. This is my learning, is that, bro, I'm having to reframe everything. Other people are like, oh, bro, let's catch up, or should we do this? And I have to think and remind myself, I'm like, bro, what does this mean for your kids, and what does it mean for your wife? Like,
got you.
Yeah, I could.
It's the cost thing, no way.
Yeah,
it's always a cost to everything.
Yeah. What is the consequence of this, good or bad? Like,
am I prepared to pay?
Yes,
pay that cost or not? And sometimes you can.
Yeah. And acknowledging that sometimes you do need, time and space for yourself to be able to give back to your family and be in a better headspace. But also, I think that I've gone so far that way in the past that now I'm like, oh, do I need to do that? Probably not.
You're 34 now. Looking back on what everything you've just told me, the things you've learned, what would you go back and tell that 16-year-old self now if you could?
Stop caring so much about what other people think about you. Yeah. And I'm sure someone told me that. Like my older brother, he would have told me that.
I think it's an easy thing to say, much harder thing to do.
Yeah.
I tell people that. I try to tell myself that, but I still care. I care what you think. I care what people who are watching this think. Of course I do. I wish I cared less because then I think I'd just do a whole bunch of things differently.
Yeah.
I'd give a whole bunch of things a crack. And I understand the theory behind it. Like I even sit down with Jess and I'm like, everyone whose opinion I care about right now, they're all going to be dead one day. So like, why do I care?
Yeah.
And it makes sense in theory, but good luck trying to put that into practice.
Well, I think you'd say that, and I have to make that tangible for my 16-year-old self. And what does that mean? At 16, you're just discovering all sorts of things, And,
but I reckon if your 34-year-old self came back and spoke to you as a 16-year-old, I reckon you would listen to them.
True.
You're like, this is pretty trippy for a start, time travel. But secondly, you're probably the most qualified person to give me advice right now. So I'm going to listen.
So I'd say, and I'd go back and go, don't stop caring about what other people think about you. And I would go to them and say, bro, figure out who you want to be, and then make that your North Star, make that your guiding post, as opposed to running from the fear of other people's opinions
and judgment.
Yeah,
running towards that.
Running towards, I want to be that, and owning that. And I think, bro, that's the challenge, bro. You're at 16, every 16-year-old. You ask them, like, what are you going to be? What are you going to study? And like, most people go to uni and study something that they don't end up even like working in as a career. And so that's the beauty of adolescence and figuring out where you want to be. And for me, I probably was really broad, but I'd probably go back and be like, bro, just be a bit more specific. Like, and if you need to change course later, all good. But just try something. Try and be that person, not all these people. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's awesome, bro. I know you got to go, so I just want to say thank you very, very much one more time for making yourself available, hearing all the things that you've said. We've talked a lot about the cost. There's a cost for you being here, and it's mahi, it's whānau, it's kids, it's all the rest of it. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here and for being so vulnerable. One of the other things I wanted to just acknowledge you for was, and I've heard it time and time again, I've heard it from my own dad. There's always somebody who decides to break the cycle, and it's a really hard thing to do, to break that cycle. And for you, you grew up feeling all sorts of things because you didn't have your dad around, and you made a decision at some point, I'm not going to let that happen for my own kids. And just acknowledge how hard that is to do, because it's so much easier just to repeat what you know. And massive mihi, massive props to you for being a person in your own story that's going to break that cycle. I know you're probably your biggest critic, but everything I have seen of you, you're getting a lot of things right. So don't sell yourself short, and just keep doing what you're doing. Whatever the next chapter is, I know you're probably going to change and move out of that not-for-profit space, but wherever you move into, they're going to be lucky to have you, bro. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And I love it. Yeah, I love you too.
Thank you, bro. Love you too. Awesome. Thanks for having me on, and I've enjoyed the conversations that you've been having with your other guests.
So have I.
I think it's a cool space to hold, and we've got lots to learn from each other. And I think when you listen to it, you realise, I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone in these thoughts. I think that's probably the overall piece for me in this conversation is like, they're actually not alone in that struggle, and you shouldn't be alone in the solution either. So like even you saying like, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. So break the cycle. We want to be cycle breakers, but I actually can't do it. I can't break the cycle by myself. Like I need a wife that's in it with me, and then kids that believe in me. So I appreciate the acknowledgement, but I think and I'll take that. I'm definitely learning to accept some of those things, but I think that's the big picture thing here is like, bro, you're not struggling alone, and the solution isn't on you alone either. So.
It's a good place to leave it, bro.
Thank you, bro.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
I'll let you get on with it.
Thank you.